So today we are talking about the truth about spiritual warfare and what that really means, as we are on the cusp of a spiritual liberation globally. And there are, of course, forces that are going to be resisting that. We are in the middle of a war of the mind. I know that a lot of you are feeling that. It's in the air right now. It's something that we're all noticing. So it's extremely important to understand what spiritual warfare actually is and how to be on guard. In addition to that, we are going to be taking a look at the end times with regard to Christianity, talking about the end times and the book of Revelation, because this is a very good example of spiritual warfare and how it limits and conditions one's mind in a way that makes the future seem like a negative thing to be. We're going to be looking at how fear and control is used to limit the mind, limit perception, and limit consciousness. And specifically, I'll also be talking about my experiences growing up Christian and learning about this as well with regard to religious trauma syndrome that I experienced. So yeah, you probably get to watch me get triggered. But the idea here is very important to understand, because you can see that there are changes happening all around us right now. The earth is ready for a new beginning. And with a new beginning comes the end of the old. That's just how it works. People wonder why, I chose the name Morgue. The reason why I chose the name Morgue, one of those reasons was because it represents a transitory phase, just like the death card in Tarot represents a transition. It's not a bad card. It represents new beginnings. So what we're going to be talking about today is systems that can take your power away from you, and people who are trying to use fear to control you in a way that makes you terrified of the future and new ideas, and how this relates to the war of the mind that we're in right now. Now, while we're talking about this today, like I said, this is important information that you need to know, because there are limiting systems all around you right now. This is a war of consciousness. This is what we're in the middle of right now. There's a global awakening trying to occur, but there's also those forces that are trying to keep humanity still stuck in the age of ignorance and darkness. So to kind of kickstart this off, I'm going to be reading some quotes from this article on medium.com by R.M. Winter. And if you enjoy this article and some of the quotes that I read from it, hey, go follow them, give them support on medium.com. And particularly, I'm reading this, it says that religious trauma and the horror of growing up under religious control. So what does this have to do with what we're talking about today and spiritual warfare and the war on consciousness, this war of ideas that we are involved in right now? Well, this has to do with the fact that a big part of Christianity is the end times. And the end times spoken about in the book of Revelation is this idea that there's going to be an era of war and destruction, and that everyone who believes in God is going to be taken up in the rapture before all of this happens. But there's going to be Armageddon and war and destruction, and basically anyone who isn't a Christian is going to go through this. They're basically going to go through a time on earth that's so bad that it's akin to being tortured. There's going to be wars. There's going to be demons roaming the earth, torturing people. I believe that there's one demon that looks like a form of a locust or something like that bites people. And it's something along the lines of, it's been a while since I've read this stuff because, hey, I block it out because it's triggering. Something along the lines of, when this demon locust flying creature bites you, I think that you become I think that you experience immense pain but are unable to die, or something along those lines. Really, really crazy stuff. So I just want to read some of this here to you, and this is going to become apparent as to how this all connects, because we're going to see this as we go into this future, into this transitory period, you're going to see fear being used as a method of control. And so what better way to resist change of a new future and a new beginning than to make it into something to be scared of and to be something to be afraid of? Because remember, we are in the middle of a war of ideas and a war of the mind. And this is the most important battlefield. Everything starts out as an idea. All the actions that occur around you today, all the wars that are started today, all the innovations that begin today begin as an idea. So this is where the battle begins. It begins in the mind. It begins in consciousness. So you have to be on guard. You have to be prepared for this and watch out for all of the fear-based systems that are out there trying to limit your consciousness and limit our consciousness. And why I'm talking about Christianity in the end times is because it's a very good example of something that I experience and how it limits and colors a negative perception of the end. Because a lot of times in Christianity, all new innovations, all new things that are occurring in society and culture, whether these are trans rights or new technologies or gender equality, female empowerment, whatever it is, this is looked at as, signs of the end times. Humanity is becoming more sinful. We need to be, afraid of anything new. We need to be afraid of all these changes are of the devil. They're of Satan. And do you see how this is a war of the mind, how this idea, limiting idea, latches onto someone's mind, and then guess what happens? They become a soldier or a tool in this war of consciousness to stop this global liberation from occurring, because that's what's occurring right now, where humanity is attempting to start a new phase. It's trying its best to get there, to start that new phase, this new liberation. And I know that you feel it and you can see it. It's obvious once you have the eyes to see. It's happening all around you. You can see that happening. So real quick, who was the name of this? So I'm just going to call them Winter. The author here, R.M. Winter, says, I grew up in a religious household, and my dad was one of the Bible thumpers who twist verses to justify anything, even physical abuse. And he said, Jesus drove the moneylenders out of the temple. Do you think he didn't use force to drive them out? So you can see how the Bible is being used to justify violence, violence towards children. It's been used to justify slavery. It's been used to justify so many different things. If you want to see a huge example of Christianity being used as a tool for child abuse, look up the book called How to Train Up a Child. How to Train Up a Child is a terrible book and emphasizes physical abuse on children. I can't even talk about it, but if you want to see some very bad examples of Christianity being justified for some terrible things, that's one to look at. It's terrible, terrible. But anyway, so Winter says, I'm going to delve more into religious trauma in the future, but here's an example of how it contributed to my insomnia. So the inability to sleep. Now, and you'll see how all this connects, because it's going to come into the end times and how that colors perception and alters consciousness. And it doesn't matter if you're religious or you believe in Christianity or not. This is an example to be used for all different types of limiting consciousness programs that you need to be on the lookout for as we move into this spiritual liberated age that we are trying to have occur, that we are trying to jumpstart, that we are trying to initiate. So I relate to this idea of insomnia. Why do you have this idea of insomnia when you are a child and you are indoctrinated into religion? Because you have sleepless nights, terrified of certain ideas, like terrified of the idea that you're going to be burned and tortured in hell, terrified of the idea that God is constantly reading and monitoring your thoughts. Remember, people believe this to be literally true. So imagine the terror it strikes into a child that believes that this is literally true. And one of those fears is going to be the end times. And we're going to see how this is coloring the future and future progress, both whether that's technological progress or political progress or social progress in terms of human rights. That's all going to be looked at as signs of the devil, signs of the end times, signs of Armageddon. So it's conditioning humanity to look at change, and this change is a new beginning and a new future, but it's conditioning humanity to look at this as something evil, to be terrified of, that is demonic. So do you see how this is do you see more clear how this is a war of the mind, And this is becoming clear that it is spiritual warfare, and that we want to be spiritually liberated to grow and evolve and transform and ascend in consciousness. But others are trying to limit and confine and imprison that attempt of spiritual liberation. So, Winter says, the book of Revelation was one of my dad's favorite books in the Bible. So the book of Revelation is all about how John is given this vision of the end times and how the world's going to end. We had a few pastors early on that focused on this section also. This section is so important because it is used as a tool. It is such a powerful tool to keep the masses in fear. So the churches use it all the time. My dad had a habit during our bedtime routine. After he told us good night, he would remind us that the world could end tonight, so say your prayers and make sure you're right with God. And again, first of all, imagine how terrifying that is as a child. The world could end tonight, so say your prayers and make sure you're right with God. Make sure that you didn't fuck up. It's even thought control, because God reads your thought. Make sure you didn't fuck up. Make sure that you're thinking, your thoughts are monitored. The world could end tonight, so make sure that, and case in point, watch my videos and look at the comment section, and you'll see in the comments people saying, repent, the end is soon, Jesus is coming soon, the end times is near. You'll see that everywhere. So it's such a powerful force of darkness that's used to limit and confine consciousness through terror and fear. You will see, you want to really know what to watch out for? Watch out for those that use fear and terror and anger and hatred as the main means of control. Now, there's nothing wrong with being angry at certain things. Absolutely. We need to be angry at injustice. We need to be angry at certain things that occur in order to have fuel to make change. There are certain things that are okay to hate, such as you should hate violence and sexism and racism and homophobia. These are concepts that it's okay to hate those things because they are hateful themselves. But when one uses fear, control, all these different things, and are lacking in love and empathy and acceptance, etc., that is a big red flag to look out for. So anyway, if you haven't sat through a sermon on the end times, it's horrifying, Winter says. Particularly as a young kid, I know I was 5 or 6 at least, but I could have been younger. There are different interpretations of what will happen. Jesus will come back, and either he takes all his believers to heaven before the destruction of the earth, or 2, everyone remains on earth for the destruction. Believers and non-believers leave through all the horrors before the planet's destroyed. So, some people believe that Christians, true Christians, will be taken up to heaven before the end times, and others believe that that's not true, that they'll still have to go through the end times. So, Winter is saying their family believed the latter, that they're going to have to go through the end times. My family did not. I was taught that the rapture, that's the rapture that would occur. And the rapture is the idea that when the end times happen, all the Christians, and this is true, are going to disappear. They believe that all Christians will disappear, vanish. Woof. And there's even movies about this. You can watch movies about this, about the rapture Christians have put together, where people's clothes, because they see that they think their bodies are going to disappear and be taken up, and so their Christians' clothes are left everywhere because, their bodies poof disappear. Cars crash, planes crash, things like this, because Christians that were driving disappear. Pilots that were Christian disappear. There's crash, there's chaos because all the Christian. But you see, again, think about how silly this religion is. Think about how silly this idea is, where you think your literal body is going to vanish and go to heaven in your physical. It makes no sense. It's very odd and very strange. But nonetheless, that's what I was taught, and that's what many Christians believe. And I remember being terrified of this. And I remember being terrified that they would say left behind, those who are left behind, because you had to be a true Christian. If you weren't a true Christian, you'd be left behind. So I would be terrified that I had made some kind of sin. And I remember, because, I didn't feel the Holy Spirit in my heart. That's because that's not a thing. That's because it's not a thing. Feeling the Holy Spirit in your heart is something that occurs when suggestive forces happen in one, and people are moved in a certain way and make other association. Perhaps they're like, in worship, and they're being moved by the music, because music can make you feel a certain way. So music does. When you listen to a happy song, you feel happy. When you listen to a sad song, you feel sad. So music will, when you're doing praise and worship, for some people, will make them have an emotion. People go, oh, I feel the Holy Spirit in my heart. And I was just always like, what are you talking about? It's just music. But anyway, I was always terrified that I would be left behind, that I didn't do something right. So even I remember as a child, if my parents would go out to go grocery shopping or something, I would turn on the TV to watch the news to make sure that the rapture didn't happen. And that might seem kind of funny, but it's actually very, very terrifying. It keeps you up at night. It's very that's why religious trauma syndrome results from all this, because religious trauma syndrome happens to those who are indoctrinated into religion and then rip themselves away. This results in symptoms that mimic PTSD or CPTSD, and in my opinion, developmental trauma as well, because it's that traumatic. I know I'm digressing a little bit, but hey, I said you get to watch me get triggered today, and this is, of course, triggering, and so I tend to go on rants and tirades about this sort of thing because, hey, it impacted me a lot, and of course, I'm going to have a lot of emotion associated with that, and I'm going to want to talk about it. But it's still relevant to what we are talking about, because you see how limiting that is on consciousness. But for our point, I want you to see how it is making the future making new advances. I remember all new advances, right? I remember like, oh, when credit cards were a thing, oh my God, we're heading towards a cashless society. We're all going to get microchipped, and that's the mark of the beast. So even like credit cards, we're like, oh my God, credit cards, we're all going to get barcodes on our hands and foreheads. And anytime there was some kind of new technology, so, oh, we're going to get the mark of the beast. And that's the thing. It's always like, oh, the end times is here. We're going to get the mark of the beast. And for those who don't know, the mark of the beast, here, let me let you in on some Christian lore if you don't know what the mark of the beast is. The mark of the beast is a sign, according to the book of Revelation, that people will get on their foreheads or their right hands, that you can only buy or sell if you have this sign. So you can't do any transactions unless you have this mark on your forehead or on your right hand. But if you get this mark, you automatically, you can't be saved or go to heaven. Like, God made that rule for some reason. God made the rule that if you're living in the end times and you get the mark that lets you buy and sell things, you don't get to go to heaven. Even if you get the mark and pray for forgiveness, nope. Nope, you effed up. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. If you get that mark so you can, buy a sandwich, you're screwed. So that's essentially what that's about. So you're basically living in this time that's hellish. There's demons roaming the world, torturing people, and you can't buy or sell anything, or else you're going to go to hell if you do. So you're starving, and you have to be in hiding from people that are trying to eradicate Christians, and all. It's crazy. So, but do you see how it puts the fear into the heart of those against anything new and any changes or any innovations in society? Whether that's socially, because it's like, oh no, gender equality. Oh my God, but God only made Adam and Eve. So clearly now, if there are non-binary and trans people, oh my God, that's satanic. The end times are here. Oh no, we have new technology. That's satanic. The end times are here. Oh no, we have women's liberation. Oh no, the end times are here because the husband is supposed to be the head of the household. All of these limiting factors. So do you see how this is a war of ideas, a war of the mind that is getting people to look at the future and progress and change and spiritual liberation in a negative way? Instead, it's, of course, a positive thing. What's happening, really? We're having rights for, we're trying to get more rights for people. We're trying to allow people to express themselves more. We're developing in our technological abilities. We're being able to be connected on a global scale so that we can communicate with each other and rise together and realize that we're in a connected society and raise our consciousness up. And that's the whole thing. This whole idea about the end times is like I've said before, this whole second coming of Christ thing. The second coming of Christ is not Christ coming from the clouds and doing whatever. It's a new consciousness, and that's what we are. We are a new beginning. We are the second coming of Christ. We are the new age. Like, that is what we are. That's what we are doing. And it even says in the Bible that the king, after all this, Jesus comes and Jesus establishes the kingdom of heaven on earth. Well, that is what we are doing. And as a new consciousness and a liberated spirit and one people and one collective and one earth and one planet, we will create the kingdom here and now. So you see, it's really what's happening is that this fear-based religion and Christianity, etc., are actually preventing the new liberated kingdom of heaven, because that is what we are bringing in a new era and a new consciousness. So do you see the ironic thing is that they themselves in this religion, that religion itself is what is preventing a united world and the kingdom from actualizing here and now. But anyway, I want to read a few more comments from Winter here. Who says, the believers go to heaven and the non-believers go to hell. I'm not going to go into details about it, they say. I don't even remember everything. Google it. There's plenty online. There's plenty of movies too. And I understand what they're saying, that they don't even remember everything, because what happens when you have religious trauma syndrome is you block a lot of this out. I studied the Bible so much, but sometimes it'll be like, oh, right. What was that again? Like, I had a hard time remembering with about those demons that bite you. It's something weird. They'll have like the body of a locust or the head of a lion. Or I don't know. It's something weird. But I used to know it like that. It's just I blocked this stuff out because it was traumatic. So I understand Winter doesn't want to go into it. They don't want to explain it. They're just like, Google it if you want more info. But what they say is all of these scenarios are terrifying. But my dad believed in the second scenario, we were going to live through the worst of it. So what Winter and their family believed, they believed that they weren't going to be taken up to heaven, that they were still going to have to go through the trials and tribulations of the end times. That's, of course, the Great Tribulation, it's called. So Winter says, I was so terrified the world was going to end. Every night I would stay awake scared that it might be the night that the end time started. I remember that. I remember having sleepless nights, being scared. So Winter says, I wasn't afraid I was going to hell, but I wasn't ready to die. So Winter didn't believe that they were going to hell. Winter believed, oh, well, I'm a Christian, I'm not going to go to hell, but I still might have to go through the end times. So I was not so lucky. I thought that I was still terrified of hell because I felt very different and ostracized. I did not. I had a terrifying experience growing up, and believed that you have to do every single thing right. If you get anything wrong, that you could go to hell. So not only was I terrified of the end times, but I was terrified of hell as well. So I was terrified of the possibility of going to hell or being left behind to face the end times. And so Winter says, I definitely did not want to live through the horrors described in Revelation. Every night I was convinced that it was going to happen that night. I would stress about it and pray. Think how screwed up this is for a kid. That's why I said I turned on the TV every time my parents would leave to make sure that the rapture didn't happen, the end times didn't occur. Think about how screwed up this is. So, and Winter says, I would think about any sins I had committed that day, right? You have to make sure that you're constantly asking forgiveness, that you're doing things just right. Then I would remember that the Bible says no man knows the day or the hour that Jesus would return. So I would lean more into the belief that it would definitely happen. If I knew it would happen, it wouldn't actually happen. This is the kind of manipulation I had to do to my own brain just so I could sleep as a little kid. I spent my formative years dreading bedtime. This went on until my teens. When I was old enough to realize that my dad was on the crazy spectrum, the fear at night didn't go away. My fear shifted to a more logical fear. Someone was going to break in and stab me to death. I don't know what that specific fear started. So See here, this is a really important point, and I'm going to digress a little bit here. So do you see how even when Winter stepped away from Christianity and realized that, hey, the rapture wasn't true or whatever happened, they still had that fear that was embedded with them, but it just got projected onto something else, like a fear of someone breaking in. So do you see how it creates that fear within you? And then even if the thing that caused that fear is removed, that fear still stays there. It just gets projected onto something else. So a lot of people who have developmental trauma, and religion, in my opinion, causes this, can have leftover fear and pain and whatnot that just gets left and projected onto other things. Even if you don't believe that, even if, like, say you're not afraid of hell anymore, that gets projected as a fear of something else, because you have that fear and your mind goes, oh, I'm feeling fear. What am I afraid of? And then it finds something to be afraid of. Same thing kind of happens sometimes with depression. Sometimes depressed people, I have depression, so I understand, just have a feeling of depression. And because you have that feeling of depression, your mind is going to try and find a reason for it. Even if there's no reason for you to feel depressed, it's just that feeling that you have. Your mind will attach it to something like, oh, I'm depressed because I just went through a breakup, or because my dad died 4 years ago, or because work is really stressful, or what. Even if that's not the case, your mind, because that feeling is there, tries to find something to attach it to. So this is why religion has all these issues that can be lasting. And so Winter would even still continue to stay awake. Here's something that I really want to emphasize, because this is something that I relate to. So, and then we'll get back to the main topic. And so anyway, Winter said, I had years where I slept fine as long as the TV was on. But when insomnia comes back, it takes the form of replaying all the mistakes I made that day. It's worry about the future. It's confidence that nothing will work out. It's hyper focus on my lack of perfection. And I've talked about this before, how religion can create perfectionism. So even though I'm Winter is not religious anymore, as far as I know, if they have insomnia, just like that, they would go over and over to see if they sinned that day. Now they'll just go over and over and see if they've made any mistakes, and it manifests as perfectionism. And I relate to this as well. So it creates this perfectionism in one, because if you make a mistake in Christianity, you're going to hell. So I notice this a lot in myself, that I need to stop, that I once you become conscious of the unconscious, that's why becoming conscious of the unconscious is so important. So once you become conscious of this and you go, oh, like for me, for example, I go, oh, wait, I got to stop. What I'll do with my perfectionism is focus on flaws, like instead of focusing on sin, right? You see how it's getting projected onto something else? A good example of this is I have flowers that I take care of. I have to stop myself, because a lot of the times I'll focus on all the flaws. Oh, this flower is wilting. These leaves are brown. I need to add food. I need to prune this. I need to prune that. And I'm just staring at all the flaws. And I have to stop myself and go, you know what? These flowers are really pretty, and I just need to appreciate their beauty. They're beautiful. You see how I miss the beauty because I'm obsessed with finding the flaws. And that is stemming from Christianity and focusing on sin to make sure that you're perfect so that you don't go to hell. Now, I know that it says Jesus forgives you and all that, but still, it's you need to follow the rules to go to heaven. And so that's why it's important to be conscious of this, so you can recognize it and make changes. Just like now that I become aware of it, I can be like, oh, hey, I recognize that I'm doing this. I need to stop this and just look at the damn pretty flowers and enjoy how pretty they are. But that's just that comment I want to make there. Like, I know that's a little bit of a detour, but like I said, hey, you get to watch me get triggered today. So that's what you get. But the main point that I want to get across here, and how it pertains to this era of spiritual liberation that is occurring around us right now, is you can see that we are engaged in a war of ideas, and Christianity is a very good example of this. When they look to the future, but they color it as something evil, satanic, and negative. Now, this just doesn't just happen in Christianity. Look at all the different forces out there, that all the different ideas that do this, whether it's just like conservatism or different religious groups or different political groups, how they interpret change, anything new, anything different, anything progressive as being evil, demonic, or an attack on the family, or trying to degrade values or degrade ethics or degrade morals, that we need to just take things back to how they used to be, to the old. So this is what's important to look out for, is look out for these limiting ideas that are going to try, and you need to be, and the reason why this is so important, because this is happening, especially in the spiritual community. There are a lot of really weird, conservative, backwards ways of thinking in the spiritual community. So you might just be watching something about, I don't know, meditation or something. Then you'll get some weird thing pop on your feed, whether it's TikTok or whatever, from this spiritualist that's a conservative that's telling you that, oh, well, we need to get rid of these kinds of people, or we need to do this or that, and have some weird ass spiritual reason they pulled out. So you have to be careful that even things parading as spiritual, remember, we promote a rational spirituality. We have a system of meta-rationalism. It's about understanding the metaphysical domain in a rational way. We understand intuition and reason. We need both. Now, you need to be careful, because even in spirituality, there are limiting beliefs. Some limiting beliefs that you can see right away are things like, oh, the universe will provide. That's the same thing as saying God will provide. Or I'm in a bad mood because Mercury's in retrograde. No, you're not in a bad mood because Mercury's in retrograde. You're in a bad mood because you haven't done inner work. That's like saying, oh, I'm in a bad mood because demons are tempting me or something. You have to not use things as scapegoats or cop-outs, or things that you don't want to give your power away to this idea of the universe, or give your power away to this idea of God. You don't want to blame everything that bad happens to you, or you not dealing with your personality as the alignments of planets or something like this. You need to take responsibility for your actions and realize that you are a God. And being a God comes with responsibility and comes with actions, comes with taking responsibility for your actions and stepping into your power. We are here to grow, learn, and understand together. And so this idea of the end times is just a fear tactic used to try and limit human consciousness and human potential. The second coming of Christ is a new consciousness. It is what we are. Of course, I'm being metaphorical about that, but it is a new consciousness that will allow us to build the kingdom of heaven on earth, meaning we'll be able to create a globally united planetary civilization dedicated to increasing the quality of life for everyone, where we can thrive and grow and learn together. And we can do that through a new consciousness that allows us to understand that we are all eternal souls, eternal minds, beings of frequencies connected in this world together. So we are on the cusp of a new beginning, which means the end of the old. The end of the old, the end times. The end of the old is not this scary thing. It is the birth of the new, as long as we are here to facilitate that birth. And it is us as we step into a world where we can create a harmonious society where we're finally thriving. That's what a new world, a new consciousness, a new planet, and a new mind is all about. It's about stepping away from survival mindset and dog eat dog into a thriving mindset and a united society where we are helping each other build, learn, grow, experience, and understand together. So be on the lookout for fear-based tactics trying to get you afraid of the new, that's trying to get you afraid of innovation, that's trying to get you afraid of progress, because those are the tactics that will be used in this war of the mind to limit you. Instead, learn to expand your consciousness, learn how to use intuition and reason, extremely important, to be lucid and clear-minded, and allow yourself to grow and evolve in consciousness. And as we do that together, we can begin to shape a beautiful new world and build that kingdom right here and now for us all to take part in a thriving new society. So I have a lot more videos, my friends. If you want more, check them out. And also, please like and subscribe, help spread this information. And if you enjoy my work, support over on Patreon. It helps out a lot. You get access to members-only videos every single week, and all the members-only videos that we have. Today's members-only video that's coming out is about transhumanism and immortality. Is it possible to live forever? That's happening right after this video is over. And you can also support by hitting the join button right below this video on YouTube. And as always, don't feel pressured. I never want anyone to feel pressured to have to support monetarily. You don't have to. There are plenty of free ways to support, like liking and subscribing and sharing. So I want to give a shout out to everyone who does support, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela Maria, Joel, Fairies of Venus, Pashida DB, everyone else. And if you don't see your name up here yet, I do have to update this, so bear with me. Thank you very much, my friends.